Hey folks, it's good to be here today streaming. If you're just joining, be sure to let us know in the chat where you're coming from. Man. Today, it's been a... I want to make sure that I've got my headphones set correctly here. Yeah, no wonder why that's so weird. All right, that's a lot better. I can hear myself now. Today we're going to take a look at a couple of different things. If you haven't really dug into some of the powerful stuff in Obsidian, I found a really cool way to manage projects and goals utilizing the data view plugin and some other stuff. So I want to spend a few minutes just kind of dissecting it. We'll do that as a segment that we'll pull out for a video on the channel outside of this live stream. And then after that, I want to kind of just dive into some things that I've been thinking about in regards to productivity systems, some of the concepts that I've been thinking about myself and working on, and then looking into an article that I found recently that talks about it too. But again, if you're just tuning in, let us know where you're coming from in the chat. I would love to hear from you. If you're watching on Twitter or on LinkedIn, as well as YouTube, welcome. Glad to have you here. If you want to hop in on the chat, I don't know if Twitter or LinkedIn have chat that comes into the software that I'm using, Restream. I haven't seen anybody from there, but if you want to hop in on the chat, head on over to youtube.com/effectiveremotework and join us over there. We'll get started in just a couple minutes, but feel free to just hang out today. If you haven't been along for one of these live streams, think of it like a work with me session. We're just kind of going through a couple topics, talking about things. If you want to just hang out and work on something that you've maybe been putting off, feel free to do so. Otherwise, if you just want to listen in and chat along while we're talking about stuff, feel free to do that too. And if you don't know who I am, my name's Justin. I am the leader and the founder at Effective Remote Work, where we help remote workers live impactful lives. So this looks a lot in the personal knowledge management space, because I think that's a key part of being effective in today's modern workforce, but then also looking at remote work topics, productivity topics in general. Basically, we're productivity nerds who are also remote workers. So there's a lot of stuff that'll pertain to just about anybody working in a digital first type workplace today, whether you're hybrid, whether you're a college student or whatever. But yeah, we'll hang out for a couple seconds here, and we'll get started into the article and the vault that I have. It's been a couple weeks since I've been able to do a live stream. It's been a number of things going on in this side of the world, or my part of the world here. One of the things that I have been doing has been trying to sort out my productivity system. I've been realizing that the way that I've been thinking about work and thinking about getting work done, approaching getting work done, has been interesting. I'll talk a little bit about that at the beginning of the stream here too. Basically looking at how this idea of getting things done really focuses on context and splitting things into very granular segments, but for some people that can really overwhelm them. Sometimes you need to look at it from a top-down perspective, and that's what I've been thinking about and looking at a lot lately. So we'll talk about that a little bit today too. Welcome on the stream if you're watching. We'll get going in just a second here. A couple segments that we'll do right up front. Hey Shanna, welcome from Memphis. All right, we're going to dive in here. We're going to do a couple segments at the get-go that we're also going to record for the YouTube channel. We'll do a short and also a look at this project management system that someone's built. Christian Baggerbach, I probably butchered that, in Obsidian. I've been thinking a lot lately about productivity systems and how they're different for different people. Getting things done traditionally is a bottom-up system. What does that mean? Well, that means that you start with your tasks and you build them into projects, and you build them into areas, then you build them into goals, and you build them into this overall life structure that you have. For some people, this can be really beneficial, but for other people, this can be very overwhelming. I am one of them. So one of the things that I have seen is that for people who are overwhelmed by getting things done, take a project first approach. A project first approach means that you're looking at the big picture. It's a top-down perspective, and then you're zooming into different areas. So for example, if you are working in marketing, you might see your marketing work and then split different work that you're doing in campaigns. So then you can zoom into each one of those areas with the ideas and actions and mini projects that you have to deal with. Zooming in, starting from a top level and zooming into individual areas is a good way to reduce overwhelm. So if your system's failing you, maybe try going the opposite direction. Go from top down versus bottom up. So today, in relation to that, I wanted to I'll start that over again for the recording bit of it anyway. One of the things that I have been looking at recently has been how I might look at building a top-down system inside of some kind of productivity tool. I have been wondering if there's a way to do this in Obsidian or using another tool, but in my research, I stumbled across this awesome vault that Christian Baggerbach, forgive me if I totally butchered your name, but he's constructed using a number of plugins inside of Obsidian. I want to take a look at that today just to see how this is put together and to show you some of the power of what you can do inside of Obsidian. Let's head on over to the vault to take a look at what this is. All right, I'm not going to go to the vault first. Now you're getting a real behind the scenes look of what it's like to record a video. Let's head on over to his website so that you can take a look at what this is composed of, and then we'll dive into the vault itself. All right, so here on the screen, I've got Christian's website. How do I manage projects and goals in Obsidian? This is a really unique idea because it leverages the Data Explorer, or not Data Explorer, it leverages the Data View plugin, which allows it to pull in different segments of information from different parts of your vault using the queries involved. So you can see that he's got this dashboard where you can pull in goals and projects. We'll take a look at this in the vault in just a second. What's really cool though is that it's a very minimal plugin vault. There's a few different ones that help. The minimal theme is what enables the card view that you see in the screenshots up here. But then there's also the contextual typography, which is necessary for the usage of minimal. Data view plugin, the Kanban plugin, and then two plugins that Christian has offered. The quick add plugin, which automates the creation of the goals and projects. It's like a macro plugin, which is pretty neat. And then meta edit, which edits the metadata or YAML front matter in the note to reflect the status of a Kanban board. Now, these two plugins have a little bit more power and use than what's covered in this vault, but I thought it was an interesting primer on how it works. But basically, if you want to get involved, and we'll have a link to this in the description, you can download this demo vault to see how it's all put together. You can copy and paste stuff in. I'll let you follow the instructions here, but basically there's just a few settings to set up inside the plugins. And then we get down here. It's kind of the overview of how it works. There's a dashboard, which gives you an overview of all your goals and projects. And then the goals are in a Kanban board as well as the project, so you can kind of see where things are at. I'm really interested in this approach because I've been on the search for more of a top-down productivity system. Getting things done is traditionally bottom-up. You build from tasks up to projects, up to areas of responsibility, up to bigger goals, up to this overarching vision of your life. And for some people, that works really, really well. For others, like myself, not so much. It can be a little overwhelming, especially with the way that oftentimes these systems are constructed, to see so many different types of tasks from different areas of your life, or even just these very granular tasks. And so seeing a top-down view versus a bottom-up view, I think might be a little helpful for those of us who might be struggling with overwhelm when dealing with a task system. I haven't settled on using this in particular, but again, like I mentioned, I thought it was a really interesting approach to how you could potentially build something like this inside of Obsidian. Let's head on over to the vault and we can take a look at that. Here. Okay, so this is Christian's demo vault. We'll open up the side pane over here so you can see. It's pretty simple. There's a goals folder, projects folder, templates, views, and then 3 notes: dashboard, goals, and project board. The dashboard is really just a couple of data view queries, but with the minimal theme, you can set the CSS classes here, cards 1.1, and table wide to show the data view results that are in a table format in this card setup, which is really, really handy. If we just go in here, you can see what this data view block looks like. It's just a simple table query, which creates the link to the file as the title. It pulls in the progress bar for the goals from goal, so it's just pulling from the tag goal, where progress does not equal target. So that's basically saying where the progress value in the goal note is not equal to the target, so anything that's not complete. And then sorting by descending on type. So this is really cool how it pulls this in dynamically. Something interesting that you can do if you wanted to create a goal is all you have to do is hit Control or Command P in his demo vault, and it's got these quick add actions pinned to the command menu in the command palette. So you can hit add goal or add project. I'm going to hit add a project, and it automatically walks you through these prompts, which is really, really fun. So I'm going to add a project and say I want to learn Ruby on Rails. This is relating to my goal of test goal, subtitle, because I like discourse, and discourse uses Ruby on Rails. Okay, so that's actually creating this, which is pretty fascinating, I think. It created that project already over here. You can see it says Learn Ruby on Rails. And the other cool thing is that if we go into our project board, it's automatically added to the Kanban board, Learn Ruby on Rails, and it's associated with the goal that we set. This is really fascinating because the automations that he's created here using the Quick Add plugin allows for much more easy, streamlined creation of these goals, of these projects in here. Otherwise, you would have to click and create a note, manually fill out the template, manually add it to the project board, manually connect it to the goal. And instead, he's just using simple data view queries and some JavaScript built into the vault here to create this. So if we go into, we'll start back up in goals. You can see the setup here. He's got just a couple of different Kanban channels. So we'll go with the test goal that I created. Look into here. So we have a YAML front matter that's got tags, the alias, so that the name of the note can be different from the actual title, which is good because the title differentiates it in the vault. You might have goals at some point or projects at some point that have similar names. You don't want to deal with that. The type, and we'll get into this. This dynamically updates. We'll get into that in a minute. Progress and the target, the reason, because it's a good idea to track the reasons that you have a goal, and then the time span in which you think you want to complete that. This is where it gets interesting here, because in this data view snippet area, you can set data view parameters, or essentially parameters. So you can automatically query these and try to find those. So the bar uses a view progress bar, and then uses the file test goal. And then under projects, it's looking at projects and then links, and then it pulls them in automatically. So you can see under here, created projects is automatically associated with this data view query, which is just fascinating. I'll be honest, I haven't dove in specifically into the technicals of this. I'm not an expert at writing these queries by any means, but I thought it was a fascinating example with a little know-how, what you can accomplish inside of Obsidian. If I hop back over to the project board, we can look at the project that we just created, which is to learn Ruby on Rails. You can see it was created in the to-do category. If I pop in here, you can see tags project, the alias is learn Ruby on Rails, status is to-do, and then our goal is test goal, so it's automatically associated up there. You can create these templates in whatever way you want. I'll show you those templates in just a second. But what's really fascinating is that on this project board, if I move this over to in progress, a couple of things happen. If I wait a second, because it takes a second sometimes to do so, and pop back into here, you can see that the status has been updated automatically to in progress. And that's the meta edit plugin. We'll dive into the settings in just a second here, but I wanted to show you this because if we go back to the dashboard then, you can see that now Learn Ruby on Rails is under our active projects because it's looking in this data view query for notes under project where the status equals in progress. It's a really fascinating way to pull in almost database-like features into Obsidian without building a real database. It's quite amazing. Let's take a look at the two plugins that are included in this vault that Christian has created. First and foremost, Quick Add. You can see we have add goal and add project. If you want to actually change or look at these macros, you want to look at the manage macros button here, not the settings here. There's a little, the user interface isn't 100% clear, but I'll show you it in just a second. But under manage macros, say we want to look at the add project macro, we'll hit configure, and then there's 3 steps to it. Create project note, wait for 200 milliseconds, and then capture it to the project board. Looking under the settings for create project note, you can see that we're pulling an automatic template from the project item template in the templates directory. The file name format is set here. You can pull in values. So if you set value in the note with this syntax, then it will prompt you when you create the note using the Quick Add plugin for these values. You can set a folder of where you want to store the note. This one's in the projects, and then under capture to project board, you can set the file name of what you want to set it to. I've also done some testing with this. You can use a variable in here like value area. Say if you're working on a specific area, but you don't want to have it all under one board, you can type in that area and say effective remote work or YouTube or work, and then it'll automatically add it to your work project board if it matches this file name. You want to add it as a task if you're adding it to a board, and then you can add it under a heading, which I think is fascinating too. So if you're going to add a quick add goal or a quick add macro, to do that, you just type in the name here, test, and you go down to macro, and then you add choice. But if you actually want to associate it with a macro, you have to hit configure, and then which macro you want to use, and then click this command button, the lightning bolt. That's pretty cool. Under meta edit, this is really neat too, because there's a setting for Kanban board helper. If we click on the gear, you can see how it's set up. So you can type in the Kanban board that you want, and it'll automatically pull in the possible values from the columns on that board. Then in notes that are linked to that board, you can have them automatically update the status. So like we did under the project board, if you move it from the to-do category to the in progress column, then it will automatically update the status attribute in the YAML front matter to reflect the name of that. It's really handy to avoid a lot of manual work. So what do you think about this? I think this is a really interesting approach to managing tasks and managing projects inside of Obsidian. However, is it worth the extra hassle versus using a tool like Notion or a dedicated task manager like Todoist? I'm up in the air on that yet. But for those of you who are interested in digging in and configuring and tweaking with Obsidian to your heart's content, this very well may be an option to make Obsidian a productivity tool of choice for you. All right, so we're done with the recording section of that. Hopefully I'm not dealing with weird audio issues because I'm hearing an echo in my headphones. I am sorry about that. If there is one, please let me know in the chat if you're hearing an echo of my voice. It might just be my audio configuration on my side. I've got some goofy stuff going on. But what do you think about this? I would love to hear from you. Like if you're intrigued by this, or if this is just a little too complex for the everyday person using Obsidian. I'm leaning that it might be a little bit more on the complex side. Okay, thanks, Shanna. I appreciate that. Yeah, I was just a little concerned because for whatever reason I was getting a very, very faint echo of my own voice in my headphones for a minute there. But yeah, I'm leaning a little bit more towards like this being complex. I think if you set it up right, you're not going to have to do a lot of maintenance with it long term, but I'm not entirely certain if it's the right choice for a lot of people. Honestly, if you wanted to create a dashboard like this, using Notion is probably easier because you don't have to deal with the querying and the coding out the gate. You can just use the graphical user interface to do something like that. But not everybody wants to use Notion either. Some people prefer to have Notion set up for their personal, they would prefer to not have it use it because it's all stored in the cloud. It doesn't have very good offline access, things of that sort. With Obsidian, you kind of have a little bit more choice and flexibility, which is really, really nice. I think one thing I did forget to cover, which I'll cover real quick here, was templates. One last thing to cover today. One last thing is to take a look at the templates real quick. There are two templates here that are associated with those quick add actions, the goal item template and the project item template. If we could look at them real quick here, you can see that we have these value in the curly brackets. That is what the quick add will pick up on for adding. So it'll prompt you, what's the value? What's the goal here that you're trying to reach? What's the target? Why this goal? If you want a list of things to choose from, you can set it up like this. Under project item template, we've got a similar thing here, add to project, and then the project subtitle. Pretty handy in that regard. So Shanna says, love the idea. My long-term goal is to drop third-party apps for Obsidian. I think I still need reminders or a task app for quick capture on mobile or setting alarms. Yeah, I agree too on that bit. I don't think, unless someone hacks it in there, I think a reminders app or Todoist or something like that is going to be best long-term for tasks that you need to be reminded for in particular, or if you need to handle dates on them. The tasks plugin for Obsidian is pretty good, but it's the challenge with Obsidian plugins, and we're starting to see that a little bit if you are subscribed to Eleanor's Obsidian Roundup newsletter, is that periodically we're seeing developers of plugins say, hey, I want somebody to take over development and ownership on this one. Oh geez, I just recorded that whole bit on the templates and I was on the wrong view. Sorry. I'm going to do that again. One last thing to take a look at here are the templates. There are two in this vault, in this demo vault, one the goal template and the project template. In here, you can see that there are these values in double curly braces. This is what the Quick Add plugin uses to prompt you for these values when you're automatically adding them through that plugin. So this one is the name of the goal, the target number, what you want to reach for the value of it, why that goal, and then if you want to have a drop down where you can choose from a number of options. It can be 10 years, 5 years in this instance, where you can just create this list. And then our project item template, you've got the same idea here. You've got an alias set up, the project subtitle, and then it just automatically plops these in the directories that you set up in the macro itself, whether it's goals for the goals, projects for projects. Anyway, what I was mentioning was that with Eleanor's roundup, where I've been seeing some more people asking for other developers to come in and take over ownership over their plugins. This, unfortunately, is the challenge with things that are open source that are not easily monetized. If you can't turn it into some kind of low-level business model, it's really hard to justify to keep spending time on something, especially as something gets popular. If something's popular and it requires a lot of time and effort for you to maintain or handle feature requests or anything like that. I mean, obviously you can try to scale out into the community, but if it's just you or one or two people, it can be really difficult to maintain these development projects from an open source perspective. So that might be a risk long-term for building workflow on top of a tool like Obsidian, especially with some of these fancy workflows and setups and plugins that are going on. If it's not integrated into the core software and maintained by developers who are making money from it, more than likely at some point, either development on that plugin will cease and it'll either just continue to work as is, or it'll break at some point down the road, and then somebody will either have to step in and try to fix it, or you won't be able to use it anymore. So that's kind of the unfortunate part about the Obsidian ecosystem at this moment in time. Like I said, extremely powerful though. There's lots of things that you could do with this plugin, but there's a risk with it long term. I do have to say though that this is an ingenious way to approach it. So if you ever see this, Christian, thank you. Nice job. It's fantastic. I wanted to show you a little bit though, quick, about how I am thinking through some productivity problems lately. Again, if you're just joining us, say hi in the chat. Love to hear what you're thinking about, what you're working on, where you're from. But by the way, if you haven't checked out Miro or Miro, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but this is a really cool software that allows you to do some whiteboarding for free online. I have a 38-inch ultra-wide monitor, and I love just spreading this thing out and zooming in and zooming out and putting note cards and drawing diagrams, and you can pull it up on an iPad Pro and use the Apple Pencil with it. It's nice for being able to whiteboard, better than this massive honking whiteboard that I have over here, though it's sometimes nice to do it in an analog space. But I've been thinking through productivity. As I mentioned earlier, I've been talking about top-down systems versus bottom-up systems, and I'm trying to figure out how the heck do you build a top-down system that actually makes sense. And so this is kind of the diagram that I've come up with, and I apologize if it's a little small. I'm trying to zoom in as far as I can here. But this is kind of the flow that I see with it. It's kind of circular in nature in that, you have this big picture where you can see the different areas. So at this level, there is the theme and big picture. This is kind of a dashboard view, similar to what Christian created for his goals and his active projects. But this is a place that you can see the different areas and kind of jump into them. My main problem with productivity software right now, the way that I've been using them, is that I'll schedule up a bunch of different tasks to work on a day. And then even if I limit it to like 6, I look at that list and my brain immediately gets flooded and overloaded with all of the different things to do. And I realize why. It's because when I look at a task for my work, and then I look at a task for effective remote work, and I look at a task for my home life and for my finances and all of that, it loads up all of this cognitive load into my brain. These multiple contexts. And so that is kind of a problem for me. Just a moment. Sorry about that. Basically, like, what I'm wanting to aim to do and try to figure out how to build is a productivity system where I can launch into different areas without getting overwhelmed by the details. So I start from this dashboard. I start to see the big picture of the different areas of my life that are important to me. And then from there, I can choose to engage with an area. And deciding on what that area is kind of defined up here based on the day-to-day needs that I have, or defining some kind of routine or schedule for managing those areas. But I can go into each one of these areas, and on the way into them, I get a view of the goals and plans and big picture projects that I'm working on. And then from there, I can dig into the details. So for like, if one of these areas is effective remote work, one of the goals that I have is to just figure out, how do I make this more sustainable for myself? One of those aspects is that we have the Obsidian made simple course that I partnered with Francesco D'Alessio of Keep Productive on, which we're actually looking at doing a version 2 of that here in the next couple of months. And so it is, I don't want to get overwhelmed with seeing the to-dos for that when I'm in my work mode for my day job, because that just, I don't need to see that stuff at that point in time. But when I'm ready to sit down and engage with that, then, I want to be able to focus on that wholly and focus on that alone, to see those goals, to see those plans, to see those projects, to have a backlog of ideas and I want to execute on in that area. And then ultimately my action plans for what I need to do now. So that's just one example of how I want to engage with this. I'm just kind of walk through the diagram here a little bit. So between these two sectors, the time and focus management selection, and then the theme and big picture dashboard, that my defined and immediate focus should dictate where the dashboard is taking me. So up here, I have some ideas on time and focus management. Like in my morning block in the morning, what am I doing? Can I set aside from like 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. to just have my self-focused time where I'm taking care of my kids, I'm getting ready for the day, I'm doing my thinking, I'm doing my writing, I'm doing my deep work. And then after that, in the afternoons, where I'm handling more of my meetings, more of my workouts, more of my shallow work, when I'm naturally drained. And the other thing I'm looking at too is making sure that I'm not continuing to procrastinate on having fun, because that's something that I definitely do. I tend to put head down at work first, and then I forget to take breaks and actually do things that are enjoyable. So I need to and want to develop more intentional leisure into my schedule by scheduling it first and then fitting the work in around that. So just have a number of ideas that I'm working through here. An interesting concept that came from the book Time Off is that the brain needs change more than it needs a break. So instead of, kind of the core of this is that instead of working through something and getting to a point where you need to be done with it, instead of just saying, I just need to go sit down and do nothing for an hour, your brain actually just needs something different to work on, whether it's a different mode of work, whether it's going to do some work in the kitchen, like if you need to do the dishes or fold some laundry or something like that, or go for a run, get out of the house. It needs change more than it needs no activity. And I've found that to be true. And so that's where a lot of people like Cal Newport and others advocate for intentionally scheduling your weekends. Not that you have to time block it necessarily, but that you have a plan for what you're going to do, because your brain needs change for rest more than it needs break. One thing I've heard too is that if you're mentally drained, replenish yourself by physically exercising or doing something physical, and vice versa. If you're physically drained, replenish yourself by doing something mental. But up here is kind of where I'm trying to figure out, on a day-to-day basis, how do I structure my day in a way that makes sense, where I'm focusing on impactful stuff. It's where it kind of comes into this section over here of like, how do I deal with high impact work, and how do I identify and get rid of low impact work? In my mind, impact is equivalent to importance. And then I'm finding for myself that I need more organization for more nebulous work, or work that is big picture, it's strategic, that I need to spend more intentional, focused time doing that. And that I just need to find a way for more tactical work to just advance it, to have the list of the 6 things that I need to do in this one area and just go for it and get it done. It's really interesting because it's a lot of how do you think at a big picture strategic level, and then also how do you think at a tactical level on a day-to-day, on a I need to write this blog post, I need to make this video, I need to edit this video type level. You have to kind of learn, especially as you advance in knowledge work in that world, you have to learn how to kind of live in both worlds in some regards. So yeah. And then I have this like purple box here in relation to this diagram, because it's how I see reviews fitting in, where I've got this work and organization review, and that a review should happen across all areas. Like when I go into area 1 from my big picture dashboard, because my schedule for the day said, okay, this is time for area 1 now. Obviously I'm going to be looking at those things, tweaking things, evaluating those ideas. But as with any good productivity system, you do need to have some kind of review process where you take a look at the whole picture and say, is this accurate? That's really all a review is about, is making sure that your area is accurate. And I've been wondering too, in regards to this, is if I need individual places to store this type of work. So like for effective remote work, do I need to have should I just be using Notion to track that work instead of using a tool like Todoist to track all of my to-dos across all of my areas? Do I put them in the buckets where it's most appropriate to have them, and then use tools like the bullet journal or Todoist to augment what I'm doing in those project management tools? I don't know. I'm a little uncertain of what all that looks like at this moment in time. I've been looking at, solutions for this dashboard. That's kind of the big thing that I want to try to figure out, is like, where do I center all of this? Do I use my Stream Deck that I have here on the desk and just kind of make a page on that where I can push buttons and go into the different areas that I need to? Do I use a tool like Akiflow, Sensama, or Motion, which can pull stuff into one aggregated location? We'll take a look at one of those real quick here. Like this is, let's see here. They don't do a very good job of actually giving you screenshots of the software for Sensama. But here we go. Like with Sensama, you can pull in tasks from Todoist, from Asana, from Trello, into different channels, and then schedule, like put a list together for that day of what you're going to focus on. You can kind of assign it time blocking, which is interesting. Akiflow, is similar to that. You can pull in tasks from all sorts of different places. And then it kind of gives you the ability to load that up into a time block schedule. Again, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is here. If it makes sense to do something like this, or if I should just try to build independent dashboards for each area in my life. Like if I should just focus on, say, Notion for effective remote work and doing the project management there. And then using my Stream Deck to launch me into the different areas that if I'm working on something, say if I'm thinking through a tool, you know, this workflow, that it opens up my my Miro board, or if I'm working on, you know, projects for effective remote work, that it opens my my Notion dashboard that I have there, which I don't have one right now, but just brainstorming ideas about it. Interesting ideas. Motion is really interesting. It's a tool, not Apple. Motion. This one seems to be more related to people who have really hectic and busy calendars and schedules where they have to do a lot in a day. To where, like, if you get meetings scheduled, it'll automatically schedule tasks into your calendar so you have space to do them. I don't know. For me, that's not really my issue. I have more of an issue of I need to be focused on what's most important to me, and not I need to move tasks around in my calendar based upon the requirements that other people are putting on me. I don't have very many meetings. I'm very, very thankful for the job that I have, that we minimize meetings to an absolute minimum. But Akiflow looks really interesting, and I might do a little dive into it to see, especially if I can pull tasks in from Todoist or from other tools. The trouble is, though, that it's not all about tasks for me. And this is, again, where I'm going to get on a little tangent here. But I think the world would be a little better off if somebody somewhere broke away from using the getting things done methodology as a basis for ideas, and as tasks as being the unit that we build everything around. Sometimes we need bigger picture thinking. Sometimes we need bigger picture approaches to things. And sometimes I just wish someone would build a tool, or there was a tool out there where you could just easily get a big picture view of all the big picture stuff going on, and then dive into the details. Being so overly focused on the details, I think, could potentially be leading to overwhelm and to burnout for people. Like I said, if you've been around me before, you know that burnout is something that's on my mind quite a bit. Personal experience with that, and watching other people go through that too. Getting too focused on too many details at once, I think, can be a really big problem for burnout, and contributor to it. Also, information consumption can probably contribute to that too. I don't have proof for that, but I'm just positing those ideas of what I've observed and what I've read. Anyway, it's kind of just some thoughts that I have there. And then hopping back over to Obsidian. I read this article by Tiago Forte the other day. I will say, like, I don't usually agree with everything that Tiago says. He's got some good points, though, in this article, I think, about building a productivity stack, especially his ideas about the evolution of work and how work has kind of moved from email to task management to taking notes to project management, or what he terms personal dashboard. It's like a productivity stack. Like, how do you handle communications with other people? How do you handle the tasks that result from those communications? How do you handle your own ideas and thoughts that you're taking care of? And how do you handle the big picture of things? That's really what it comes down to. And I think that's fair. So anyway, I'm just going to go through my highlights from this article a little bit, see if there's anything. I think this is an interesting point. I don't necessarily know if it's true. Meaning, I don't think it's universally true for everyone. I think for some people, they can get by using their email to send messages and a to-do list and to keep track of ideas and to manage complex projects. Obviously, there's going to be other tools in there, but it's, of course, there are always better ways to do things. But I don't know if it's necessarily universally true, is that if using one platform for all of them ensures that it fails at all of them. Might not be the most optimal, but I don't know if I would classify it failure. Depends on the person, though. Like if you're dealing with multiple big projects, then yeah, you probably need some kind of other tool. If you're just handling little things here and there, you know, you got a couple projects, it depends on your workload and the way that you work and the type of work that you do. By the way, personal dashboards aren't a brand new concept. They've been around for a while. I think they're just getting more popular now because we have tools that can more easily do them, like Notion and even Obsidian if you wanted it to. It's people have been experimenting with personal dashboards in other areas. A lot of this comes down to this idea of the quantified self, which was really, really big a few years ago. How can I metricify everything about my life so I can track it and then measure it? Because what you measure is what you... I forgot what that quote is. Oh. What did I just say? Related to quantified self. I wrote that in my vault yet. I'm not a big fan of that approach. I've tried it before, the whole quantified self thing, measuring how many words I'm writing and measuring how much I'm exercising and measuring how much I'm sleeping. And I don't think it's very effective. It is in highly tuned areas. If you can narrow it down to very specific metrics that matter, like that matter to you personally, there can be power in measuring things. But just to kind of throw everything at the wall and say, we got the technology, let's just measure it all. Let's measure every moment of our day to see where time is going. I don't think that there are many problems that get solved with that. In fact, I think it ends up causing stress for a lot of people. I've heard a number of anecdotes from people, and including myself, that got really into trying to track their sleep And it actually resulted in them not sleeping nearly as well as they were prior. They were waking up tired and groggy because there was this subconscious process running of, am I getting enough sleep? Am I getting enough sleep? And when you tend to worry about something like that, which is what it is, it's worrying. You're concerning yourself with something so intently, it can really cause stress and less performance. Like if you so granularly micromanage your finances, some people need to do that, which is really important, especially like if you're getting out of debt. Like you do need to manage your finances very closely until you get to a state where it's not paycheck to paycheck anymore. And I think that's okay when people need to do that in certain circumstances. And in other circumstances, granularly managing your finances may not be helpful for you. It might cause more problems than not. So it all is relative to each person and their individual needs. But I think a lot of what Tiago is talking about here seems to be related to quantifying a lot of stuff. And I'm very much in the other side of things. Metrics are not my strong suit. Metrics tend to cause me stress. But set me in a direction and I'll get there one way or another. And I think that's where I'm talking a lot about top-down systems. It's about setting a direction that you're going to go, and you're going to figure out the direction. You're going to figure out the way to get there along the way. I do think there is power here in creating a dashboard like this. But again, it's all about creating the right kind of dashboard. And that's not easy to do. And as he gets into down here, that it takes far more time and energy to create a personal dashboard in Notion versus a note in Evernote. A personal dashboard has to be architected, designed and built and iterated on and maintained over time, which is true. It does if you're going to build something like this. I think we could probably all take a page from the book of, oh geez, I'm not even displaying this. I am so sorry. I didn't even notice that I didn't change the scene. I apologize. Anyway, here it is. The information made sense in your freeform notes isn't necessarily suited to a more structured tool. Distilled, synthesized, or restructured. So I think that is true. You do need to synthesize stuff to make sense in a personal dashboard. Build with the end in mind. It's important to do that. I think there's something to having like a big picture perspective. I think we could take a page out of the book of Essentialism by Greg McKeown, because a lot of that is dealing with big picture. You can't really focus on the essential things without getting the big picture clear. If you're just trying to focus on the essential things on a day-to-day level without being clear on what the essential things are at a big picture, it's going to be hard to do so. And here's why. You can't know what's important without first defining what's important. And so on a day-to-day basis, if you haven't defined the parts of your job that are your core work, then you don't really know what's important. You just kind of go day to day and pick whatever you think or feel is the most important thing for you to focus on. This idea here that each person's productivity stack is different, always multi-layered, multi-dimensional, and nuanced. Some of the layers will change over time, others may stick around in some form forever, and it's not about switching, it's about layering. If and when you find that one layer doesn't meet your needs, then and only then consider adding a new layer to your repertoire. That does make sense. And that's actually kind of where I'm at right now with the whole productivity thing, is that the layer that I'm missing is this big picture dashboard place. And maybe it's multiple dashboards that I need, and just having a place to launch into them, and then defining with my day and my time where I'm focusing. But anyway, that's kind of the big picture, the perspective of what I've been thinking through a lot lately. What are you thinking about this? I'd love to hear what your comments are, what you're working on in the productivity world, note-taking world. I'm going to wrap up the live stream here in just a couple of minutes because I've got some other things to get to today. But would definitely welcome your questions if you have any at this moment in time. And there's some other videos on the channel I've been doing recently. I did one on why tools don't matter, which they do actually. It's important to pick tools that work with you and the way that you think and the way that you work. I'll pop a link in the chat for that. And there's that video if you're interested in checking it out. Yeah, I've been a little slower on the public video side of things lately. It's because I've been trying to do higher quality stuff and trying to kind of batch the work that I'm doing too. Like if you've been sticking around since the beginning of the live stream today, I've been looking at, I've been doing stuff like working on trying to like record a video as part of the live stream, or do a segment in the live stream that I can pop on to the main channel. Because I love doing these live streams. I love sitting down and talking with you and talking through my ideas, talking through the thoughts, showing what I'm doing inside of Obsidian, things in that sort. I find this a lot more fun than just sitting down in front of a camera by myself with no feedback and then potentially putting a video out there into the wild. It's kind of the creator's dilemma though. I gotta figure out what's going on with that. Probably a good time to be done. Every once in a while, I either use the search menu or the quick open functionality in Obsidian, and it just flat out crashes on me. It just won't work anymore. I don't know if it has to do with the number of notes that I have in my vault, or if there's a specific plugin that's causing the issue. I need to do some isolation of it and figure it out. I haven't spent much time on it yet, but with that, we're going to wrap up today's stream. Again, if you are new to effective remote work, welcome. If you haven't been on one of these streams before, thanks for joining. If you're watching on LinkedIn or on YouTube or Twitter, LinkedIn or Twitter, thanks for watching there. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't on the YouTube channel, though I'm sure if you're watching this, you're probably already subscribed. YouTube tends to promote live streams to subscribers more than they do to non-subscribers. And if you're interested in wanting to continue the conversation about Obsidian or productivity or remote work in general, asynchronously away from these live streams, you can join our community at community.effectiveremotework.com. That's it for today. Again, I'm Justin with Effective Remote Work.